Hi guys, just before we jump into the review, I just want to make you aware I now have a Patreon page so you can pledge amounts which will help me create content in the future, and also there will be Amazon links to anything that I can see on Amazon that's included in this video, which basically means that if you click that link and go to buy the product, you pay absolutely no more, but I just get a little kickback from it. Let's jump into the review. Hi guys, welcome to Wayne Goodman Photography. So today I'm going to review the Panasonic LX100. It's my first review in quite a while. I've not had too much time over the past few months. It's been a bit difficult finding the time, and that's why I'm just sat here in front of the camera today. It's not going to be anything special where I'm going to cut to clips of the camera. I just thought I'd actually sort of sit here and occasionally wave it in front of the camera. So the reason why I want to show you this camera in particular is because it pretty much changed my travel photography life. So before this camera I had an A7Rii from Sony, 43 megapixels, super incredible camera, terrible battery life. I couldn't seem to get the colours right without a lot of work when it came to people and things like that. And although it is an amazing thing, don't get me wrong, and my friend has one, and it really is an incredible piece, an achievement in technology. You know, it changed cameras forever. I would say for me personally, I couldn't believe it when I went to this 12.8 megapixel camera, how good this little camera is as well. And although they say it's not about the tools and, you know, not about the camera and everything, it kind of is, because this is a lot less weight to drag around, and it's really made things a lot easier for me when I travel. By no means am I impaired in any way holding up heavy cameras, you know, thank God, but at the same time I'd much rather take less weight and smaller items and smaller bags and things like that, rather than be dragging around big heavy things that I might not use all the lenses I take with me, and then I've dragged up 3 or 4 kilograms worth of stuff all around wherever I'm traveling. So basically I only bought this camera just totally on a whim. I wasn't even really looking for anything. I'd had I also at the same time had an RX100 Sony camera, the little tiny zoom camera that they do. I think it was the Mark II. It was the second one, yeah, that's right, Mark II, because it had the hot shoe, which I liked. I could put a flash on it, and a couple of other features. I think it had a longer zoom on that lens as well. And it got stolen. So I was a bit gutted, but I had the A7Rii still, so I was like, oh, it's fine, you know, I'll stick with that. But I soon got sick of like dragging all the extra weight, as I say. And I happened to be in a store and I see the LX100 on discount because it was like an X-display model, and really good price. Even if I pay that today, it's still a really good price, and that's 12 to 18 months ago that I bought this camera. And it's really changed things for me. The reason being is that it's such a small camera, but it punches so far above its weight. It's a raw shooting capable camera for starters, so obviously that's good if you, like me, tend to post-process all your images and very rarely use JPEGs. I've never actually looked at the JPEGs out of this camera, so I can't tell you if they're any good or not. If you're buying this as a point and shoot camera, I am sure they'll be great, okay, but I'm not the person to ask, because I do tend to shoot raw, post-process, spend hours and hours and hours just creating the images after the fact. That's just the way I do things, as do a lot of people these days. The raw files are very malleable. They have good detail in the shadows, good detail in the highlights. You can clip the highlights relatively easy because the dynamic range is obviously not up to the standard of, say, a full frame sensor, you know, so there's only so much detail there to pull back. But out of probably the thousands of pictures I've ever taken, I would say 99% of them I have achieved the exact image I was looking for after a bit of work in post-processing. So it's a very good camera. Yes, it doesn't have the 14 stops or 15 stops of some cameras nowadays. I think it only has around 11 or 12. But as long as you expose right, you know, it's not the end of the world. You know, there's a lot of marketing that goes on in cameras these days to get us to buy them. I fall for that marketing over and over again, as you will see in my comparison review, because I'm here talking to you about how great this LX100 is, but does that mean I've not got next to me an X100F, an X Pro 2, I'm filming on the GX8, I've got my Olympus EM1 Mark II, which is my professional side of camera. it's more about the reason why I'm coming to you with this review now is because I just want to tell you how good this camera is, and just give you my views on it, but I'm also going to compare it to other cameras soon in another video. So the LX100 is a small point and shoot zoom camera. Okay, if you look at it at face value on paper, that's what you'll see it as. That's what I saw it as before I bought it, and then when I did buy it, I couldn't have been any more wrong. First of all, it has very professional features on here. I've already mentioned the raw shooting. We have a hot shoe here, which is compatible. It has the extra power point, so it's actually compatible with Olympus flashes as well if you modify them. And one flash, I've not actually got it in front of me unfortunately, but it's a tiny little flash, just sits on top of the camera, and it's a swivel flash, and it comes with, I think the I think the EM1 Mark II came with one, and the EM5 series of Olympus cameras. You can buy the flash separately. It's about, I think it's about 70 to 90 pounds here in the UK, and it works so well. I can't tell you, it's just this tiny little thing, so it works well with the size of the camera, but it has real punch to it. And on the camera you can, if you want to, you can bounce that flash up, but if you've got a high ceiling you can actually increase the power of the flash via the camera. So it gives you a lot more versatility than you would ever expect. It's amazed me, that combination, quite a few times. The other thing as well is it's sort of a hybrid street camera point and shoot. It's a very unique thing. I say it's like that because we have a third stops aperture ring on the lens itself. Okay, it's a zoom camera, but it has an aperture ring on the lens. Now, some people don't like aperture rings. Okay, some people prefer like a dial that you can use and things like that. Me, however, I've always loved the aperture ring ever since I had a Leica camera years ago, and I just found it really intuitive and a really clever way of knowing where things are, and just a quick glance. But I have had like the X100S, I think I had, Fuji, that only had full stop, so you would go 1.7, 2.8, 4, 5.6, there was no in between. This has third stops, so you've got some real versatility going on there. The other thing as well is it has this secondary ring on the lens, which I hope you can see. I'm not sure if you can see that, but basically it's a sort of command dial, it's classed as. So it can be used for various different things. It can be used for manual focus. I wouldn't recommend that though, because it's just a fly-by-wire stupid thing. It's not, you've not got proper feel like a true manual focus. But if you like that sort of thing, fine. But you can turn it so far one time and it goes to such a point. You can turn it the same, or feels the same next time, and it goes to a different point. So it's really not a manual focus camera. So what I have it set to is the zoom. Okay, so just like most point and shoots, it has a little zoom lever on here around the shutter. Okay, I don't know if you can see that. Next to the shutter speed dial, okay, which we also have, and also the exposure compensation dial. So really nice things to have. That's normal, so you would turn it on, you would hit that, little lever, and it will zoom in and zoom out, and that's fine. That's just point and shoot stuff. We expect that. However, I have this camera set up in such a way that I think it's genius, because of the way that Panasonic have designed it. So first of all, I use that little lever here. That's step zoom. So it goes in 35mm terms, 24, 28, 35, 50, 70, 75. It will go only to those numbers, okay? But if I want to go in between that, I just turn that little command dial thing, and now I get 1mm increments. So I could go 35 with here, and then I'm just a bit too far zoomed in, so I'll just bring it back to 33 and stuff like that. For me, that's one of the cleverest things I've ever seen in a camera, because if you've got a zoom camera, you are going to use the zoom, and there's certain times where you can't move forward or you can't move back with your feet. And with this, you can just get the exact framing that you want. And that's important because you're only working with 12.8 megapixels at the end of the day. So you don't want to be thinking about cropping later, because it soon becomes apparent that there's very few megapixels available for things like cropping. So really you have to do the cropping when you zoom with the camera. But I've never struggled, never ever struggled. In all the thousands and thousands of pictures I have taken with this camera, I have not struggled at all. It has a leaf shutter as well, so it's incredibly quiet when it takes pictures. People don't realise it's taking pictures, and it can also be used in the electronic shutter mode as well, which I have it just set to be automatic basically, so I'll just let the camera do its own thing. With both you get some rolling shutter. It's to be expected. It's no different really to many other cameras that I've seen, so you know, it's just one of those things. But 24 is nice and wide. It goes to 75, which is a decent portrait length. You could use it for that. It's going to be f2.8 at the 75mm end, and as wide as f1.7 at the 24mm end. And the camera does talk 35mm numbers, so when you're zooming, it's telling you it's at 24, 35, 50. It's not talking about 11.9 or 12 or 14, or you know, in terms of like micro four thirds numbers. So it sort of acts as like it's a bigger camera. It acts like a full frame camera. So you know, for most people, we talk in full frame numbers, because otherwise it becomes a bit more confusing. So it's just nice to have that base of 35mm numbers, and this camera does work with that. The only caveat to some zoom cameras, if not all of them, is when the zoom action happens, it goes in and out, it sucks air in, and with air comes dust. So there are quite a number of complaints with this camera that there is dust inside the lens, and occasionally it can work itself back so far that it goes onto the sensor. I've never had that issue, and the reason I've never had that issue is because I have it in a case, which sort of I have strapped over me. So I only ever have the camera in a case. I don't have it in any other scenario. I don't put it in my pocket or anything like that. And as a result, when I bought this camera, it had two very small specks of dust inside the lens. And right now, months and months later, it's only got two very small specks of dust in the lens. It's not changed. I've not added any dust to the lens. Occasionally I'll see dust sort of hanging around the edge of the lens or the outside of it, so I'll just blow it away with one of those blower things, or you know, maybe blowing it with my mouth just to get rid of any excess dust. So it's something to be mindful of, but certainly when you read the forums you think that every single one of them is affected by it, but I think if you're careful enough, you can avoid the dust. So that's just something to be aware of. Being a zoom camera, it comes with like a stupid, really stupid thing. They thought of all these amazing things on the camera, and then it comes with this stupid lens cap thing, which is going to get lost within about an hour of owning the camera. So I looked into it, and there's this automatic lens cap. So you can see it sort of, if I just turn the camera off, it goes in, and if I turn the camera on, it comes out. It's like a petal thing basically. There's different versions of this. Okay, so there's the Panasonic one. It's just literally, you know, a little cap thing. There's the Panasonic one, there's the Leica one. They're both very expensive, but if you go on Amazon or places like that, I think I paid about £8 for this one. It's called a JJC. I think it's JJC. Yeah. Just type in JJC and then LX100, and this will probably come up. You can get them in silver to match the silver bodied version of this camera, or black as you see here, and it was about £8, and it's lasted me so far months and months and months, and I use this camera quite a lot. It's never had any issues. I've never got it stuck, or it's never seemed to cause me any problems, so I very much doubt that the more expensive variants are going to be that much better, because I've never needed any more myself. So you know, I do think it's absolutely fine, this thing. I would recommend it. In terms of battery life, the camera's great. It's only a relatively small battery. It's not a big battery. You know, it's just normal Panasonic affair. It's about 2/3 of the size of like what's in my GX8 right now, that sort of thing, and that's so that's a much thicker battery. The GX8 also has fantastic battery life, so you know, really it's sort of it works fine for a whole day. I've never really had any problems. Plenty of times where I've sort of been out shooting for a day and I've come back and I've had like 30-40% left on the battery. It's not been an issue, so it seems very good for that. It takes fast SD cards. It's not going to shoot you know, 20 million frames a second, but I think it is something like 8 frames a second or something like that, so very, very quick. And you know, it's a camera that, alright, it's not going to be perfect for every single situation, especially if it becomes professional situations, but as a backup camera, you know, a B camera for your 4K video scenario, it has 4K, so it's got all that. The quality is very good. It's not as good as, say, your GH4 or GH5 that's coming out soon because of the bit rate, but it's a very good bit rate nonetheless. And the profiles are not quite as flat, so you've got like Cine, I think Cine D or something, maybe like equivalent of that, where there's still quite a bit of contrast going on, but plenty of times I've used this for video and I've been more than happy with the results, and just a little bit of messing about with it in post-processing and it's been fine. So overall you have this camera that I could never really ask for too much more. If they make an LX200 at some point, I'd love to see a microphone input. I'd love to see some weather resistance, because that would be great. And alright, so maybe some more megapixels, but as I've not struggled with the 12.8 megapixels on hand, it's really never bothered me that much, to be honest. So there's very few things that I think they would improve on, and it's more likely to go the other way, where they go too far with it. They make the camera bigger and they take some things away that I'm used to from the LX100. So really I'd be very surprised if anything surpasses this camera in, you know, forthcoming years as an overall camera. I really think, you know, they've recently released something called the LX15 or the LX10 or something like that. I'm not sure if that's seen as the successor, because I don't know if they are bringing out an LX200 or not, but I know that has a 1-inch sensor versus the Micro Four Thirds sensor in this camera, and I just can't see it producing the same image quality. And at least with the Micro Four Thirds I can get some decent shallow depth of field when I want it, but let's face it, it's more of a much deeper depth of field camera for the most part, which also works to its advantage. The amount of times where I've taken landscape pictures with this camera at about f4 and had pretty much everything in focus, but also being able to keep the ISO down because it's at f4. You know, because it's a small sensor, you just get that larger depth of field, just as you do with an iPhone or what have you. You know, I might not have talked about everything in this review. I think I forgot to mention the EVF, which is so much better than the GM5. There's a little interchangeable body called the GM5 that's smaller body than this, and you can put your full-size 4/3 lens in on it, Micro Four Thirds lenses on. I tried that camera for a week and just sold it. The EVF was an absolute nightmare. It was awful. It was just like looking through a pinhole, whereas this does have a much larger EVF. It's great. I've never struggled with it. It's great on a sunny day because this is quite reflective, this rear LCD, so being able to use the EVF, that's been a big bonus sometimes. I've got exposure compensation, I've got my shutter speed dial if I want it, I've got the aperture ring, which also has an automatic mode of course, but it's literally one finger just like that and you are changing the aperture. Come on, you know, what more do you want really out of a travel camera? But of course, if you're like me and you seem to have this obsession with trying the latest and greatest cameras, then you end up with the X100Fs and what have you, and all those things, which I am going to try, but whether they will make me get rid of this LX100 or even use it less is another question, because even I can't answer that right now. So thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little review. I've not done one for a while. I will try and bring you more reviews. I've got quite a few cameras at the moment I can speak about. Photography is still a major thing of mine. Personal photography. Obviously I do the professional side as well. If you know anybody in the northwest England area that needs any photography, then feel free to send them to my website, which is in the link below. and I really appreciate all your support. I've been thinking about setting up one of these Patreon pages. I feel in some ways like it's begging for money, but I also think that if I do that and I can get some money from it, then maybe I'll be able to bring you more reviews. So you might see that appear at some point in the description. And you know, I just really appreciate all your support. I know I've not brought you a video for a while, but hopefully you'll enjoy this review and I'll bring you more. Keep subscribing, keep giving me thumbs up to the videos. You know, I hope you enjoy them. If you have any comments or questions or things that you can suggest where I can improve, or things where you just basically want to talk about the cameras or whatever the subject is of the video, then leave a message down below in the comments. I will try and respond to you. I'll always try and help people as well if you've got any questions in regards to general photography. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. I'll see you again soon.